The first glimpse of the stars beyond Sol had long since lost its novelty for most of humanity. Yet for Captain Elias Cale it never failed to inspire. From the bridge of the Resolute, he watched the nebula ahead pulse in slow blues and violets. A living tapestry stretched across the void. Humanity had clawed its way into interstellar space through ingenuity and sheer refusal to yield to limits, and every voyage felt like both triumph and defiance. The crew around him worked with quiet efficiency, a blend of veterans hardened by hardship and younger officers still intoxicated by the frontier's promise. The sense of routine fractured when the sensors lit with an unfamiliar signature. Lieutenant Vela's voice, calm but edged with tension, carried across the bridge. "Captain, contact bearing 128. No known configuration." Her words hung like a blade over every ear. The crew stilled, eyes darting to the main display where a vast silhouette slid into view. It was unlike anything human design had birthed. Sleek yet angular, its hull lattice what seemed like molten veins of light, a structure that whispered a millennia of refinement. Elias felt the weight of history pressing down on him. This was not just a discovery. It was a reckoning. The alien vessel spoke first, if speaking could be called. A resonance filled the Resolute's comms, a language half sound and half intrusion into thought. The ship's translator struggled, finally spitting out fractured words. "Primitive vessel, trespass compliance required." The tone, even broken, dripped with dismissal. Commander Reese, his second-in-command, leaned close, his jaw set like iron. "They're testing us. They expect we'll kneel." Elias's eyes narrowed. To bow now would be to brand humanity a subordinate species forever. Yet reckless defiance might doom them before their story had even begun. He answered with measured firmness, his voice carrying across the gulf of silence. "This is a free expedition. We acknowledge no authority but our own." The words felt like throwing a stone into the path of an avalanche, but they were necessary. The reply came swift and sharp, the alien timbre laced with disdain. Defiance recorded. Compliance inevitable. Then the channel cut, leaving the bridge steeped in charged quiet. Some of the crew glanced at Elias with a flicker of unease. They were explorers, yes, but also inheritors of centuries of survival against overwhelming odds. Fear was natural, but surrender was not in their nature. Dr. Maria Solon, the ship's science officer, broke the silence. "They don't see us as equals. To them we're insects brushing against their domain." She pushed back a stray strand of hair, her eyes burning with intellectual fire. "But insects adapt, and sometimes they sting." Her words earned a tight smile from Elias, though Reese's hand still clenched into a fist at his side. Further discussion was cut short when a smaller alien craft detached from the Leviathan. Its movement was precise, predatory, like a hawk stooping upon prey. "Intercept course," Vela reported. "Weapons charged, but not yet locked." The implication was clear. They were being herded, tested like specimens. The crew's tension crackled, but Elias steadied them with calm command. No hostile action unless they strike first. His order was not born of fear, but strategy. Every choice had to reveal humanity's character. Unyielding, but not reckless. The alien vessel halted at the edge of striking distance. Its hull shimmered as though alive, then projected a figure into the Resolute's bridge via hologram. Tall, angular, with features that seemed carved from crystal, the being radiated superiority. Its voice, this time shaped by the translator into smoother words, carried a chilling clarity. "Your kind spreads like spores in the dark. You will either serve or be extinguished." Elias rose from his chair, his presence commanding though his frame was but mortal flesh against his figure's grandeur. "We will not serve," he said simply. "We will endure, as we always have." The alien tilted its head, studying him like one might an unfamiliar tool. For a heartbeat, something akin to curiosity flashed in its crystalline eyes before it vanished beneath disdain. Without another word, the image dissolved, leaving only the echo of its ultimatum. The crew absorbed the moment in silence, the weight of what had just transpired pressing upon every heart. They were not explorers anymore, not in the eyes of the universe. They were challengers, interlopers, perhaps even enemies. Reese broke the quiet, his voice low but fierce. "They think we're weak. they think we'll bend. His gaze met Elias's, steady as steel. We won't. Mireya's lips parted, her voice softer but no less certain. We'll have to prove it, not just to them, but to ourselves. Elias let their words sink in, feeling the pulse of determination thrum through the deck. This encounter was no accident. It was the opening stroke of a conflict that would define humanity's place among the stars. They had been weighed and found wanting in alien eyes, but the measure of humanity had never belonged to outsiders. As the alien craft drifted back toward its colossal parent ship, the stars around them seemed sharper, brighter, as though daring humanity to claim them. Elias stood at the viewport, his reflection staring back, a solitary figure facing the infinite. His voice, steady but carrying a spark of defiance, filled the bridge. Prepare for what's coming. Whatever they bring, we'll meet it on our terms. And with that, the course of humanity shifted irrevocably. The first chapter of defiance against the cosmos written not with treaties or surrender, but with the unyielding promise that they would never kneel. Would you like me to continue Section 2 with the same pace and depth, around 1,000 words? Or do you prefer I expand Section 1 closer to the full 1,700-word target first? The Resolute drifted in silent orbit above the colony world of Hyros, its crew restless under the shadow of the alien vessel that lingered at the system's edge. The days since first contact had stretched taut, each hour a thread pulling tighter against the fabric of their resolve. Humanity's frontier was no longer a promise of discovery, but crucible where survival and dignity would be tested. Captain Elias Kale carried the weight of every gaze that turned to him. On the bridge, he studied the tactical display, where a cluster of alien ships now converged. They had multiplied since the initial encounter, sleek predators forming a net around the colony. They're escalating, Commander Reese muttered, his arms crossed, jaw rigid. We hold position much longer, they'll tighten the noose. Dr. Mireya Solon stood near the console, her hands restless as she scrolled through intercepted transmissions. Her voice was tinged with unease but sharpened by curiosity. Their communication isn't just orders, it's layered, ritualistic. They don't wage war the way we do. To them, this is a performance, a demonstration of dominance. She looked to Elias, her eyes fierce, which means if we give them what they expect, we'll already be defeated. The crew absorbed her words, and the tension grew heavier, like static before a storm. Elias understood the truth buried within her warning. Brute strength could not be their weapon. Humanity's survival had always hinged on adaptation, on daring to imagine strategies beyond the obvious. Their first test came abruptly. A squadron of alien interceptors broke formation and dove toward the human colony below. On the display, streaks of fire etched the sky as defensive satellites struggled to respond. Civilians would be caught in the onslaught. If they breached the atmosphere, Hyros burns, Reese said, his voice taut. Helm, intercept course, Elias ordered, his tone calm yet cutting. The Resolute's engines flared to life, the ship surging forward like a hunter springing from cover. Weapons Officer Juno locked on, fingers steady despite the tremor of anticipation in her breath. Targets acquired. The exchange was swift and violent. Beams of searing energy lanced across the void, the Resolute weaving between them with practiced precision. Human missiles streaked toward their marks, detonating with brutal force against alien hulls. One interceptor erupted in a bloom of fire, another spun crippled into debris. The remaining craft pulled back, not from fear, but recalculation. The first blood was drawn, and it was human hands that had carved it. The bridge exhaled in a single collective breath, yet no one celebrated. They all knew this was only the beginning. Elias stood firm, his expression unreadable, but within him burned the spark of defiance turned into certainty. The aliens had expected compliance. Instead, they had met resistance. The aftermath rippled beyond the battlefield. In the alien command ship, the crystalline commander regarded the reports with something more complex than disdain. To underestimate a foe and suffer loss was unthinkable in their culture. He stared at the data feeds, the images of human ships fighting with tenacity disproportionate to their size. They should not endure, he whispered in his own tongue, though no one dared question him. What gnawed at him was not anger, but curiosity veined with a reluctant respect. Back aboard the Resolute, a council gathered in the strategy chamber. The room was dim, its walls alive with projected star maps and shifting red markers of enemy positions. Reese argued with his characteristic bluntness. "We strike again, harder this time. Show them we won't flinch." His voice carried the weight of a soldier who believed survival was carved through force. Mireya countered with quiet intensity. "If we escalate, we invite annihilation. They have resources beyond imagining. What they don't have is flexibility. We need to fight where they're blind, where they cannot predict." The debate threatened to fracture the unity of the room, until Elias cut through the noise. "We can't outgun them, and we can't outnumber them, but we can outthink them. They see us as rigid, simple. That is our weapon, unpredictability." He traced a path across the star map, his hand steady. "We'll hold this ground, but not as they expect. Every move we make will challenge their assumptions." The plan that emerged was born not of desperation, but of audacity. Decoys would scatter false signals, drones reconfigured into makeshift mines, and ground-based offenses would act as bait. It was a strategy of shadows and feints, built on the very adaptability Mireya had praised. Hours later, as alien ships surged once more toward Hyros, the trap was sprung. What they thought were vulnerable transports detonated into clouds of electromagnetic interference, scrambling targeting arrays. The mines, crude yet effective, burst in sudden brilliance, tearing through alien escorts. From the colony's surface, artillery that had lain dormant sprang to life, striking where shields were weakest. The aliens reeled, not from the scale of losses, but from the unfamiliarity of the tactics. This was not the war they had come to perform. This was chaos, and chaos favored humanity. The Resolute cut through confusion like a blade, its crew moving as one. Reese coordinated with precision. Juno's volley struck true, and Mireya's insights turned into sudden advantages at each turn. The battle did not end in victory, but in stalemate, a result far more dangerous for the aliens than for humanity. For the first time, their dominance had been checked by a species they deemed beneath notice. When the debris drifted silent and the stars regained their cold stillness, Elias stood before his crew. Exhaustion clung to them, but so did pride. "They came to break us," he said, his voice low but carrying. "Instead, they've seen what we are. We don't bend. We don't vanish. We endure." His words resonated beyond the bridge, filtering through the ship into the colony below. Fear still lingered, but it was now tempered by belief, a conviction that humanity's spirit could match even the vastness of alien might. Far from Hyros, aboard the alien flagship, the commander stared at the fractured reports once more. His claws tightened against the console, but his voice was softer than before. "They are not as we thought. They are something else." His eyes gleamed with a mixture of frustration and fascination. The struggle was no longer one of dominance alone. It had become a contest of wills. And in that arena, humanity had proven it could stand. The war had not been decided, but the story was no longer theirs to write alone. "Do you want me to now construct Section 3 in the same style and limit, around 1,000 words, so the arc closes with resolution and momentum for continuation?" The battlefield above Hyros still glimmered with wreckage when the alien fleet returned in force. Their vessels emerged like phantoms, larger and more numerous than before, their formation a wall of inevitability. The Resolute and its battered escorts held position, shields drained, weapons running hot. Yet no one on the bridge spoke of retreat. Captain Elias Kale stood at the center, his silhouette cast against the shifting star map, the weight of command pressing on him like gravity itself. This was a crucible. If they faltered now, humanity's claim to the stars would be extinguished before it truly began. Commander Reese broke the silence with a grim murmur. They brought enough firepower to reduce Hyros to ash. If they want a show of dominance, this is it. His voice carried steel, but beneath it flickered something more fragile, the recognition that sheer force could no longer be met in kind. Dr. Mireya Solon, weary but unbowed, leaned over the console, her dark eyes reflecting cascading streams of alien code she had wrestled from intercepted transmissions. "They're not only here to destroy us," she said, her tone sharp with certainty. "They're here to prove us predictable. They want us to fight like every species before us, to confirm their arrogance. She straightened, meeting Elias's gaze. That's where we strike. The captain nodded, the faintest glimmer of a plan forming. Humanity's strength had never been its fleets or its weapons, but its refusal to surrender to expectation. Then we give them what they don't see coming. The strategy unfolded in layers of audacity. Decoy signals were broadcast to mimic fleeing civilian transports, baiting alien squadrons into pursuit. Ground-based power grids were overloaded deliberately, creating bursts of interference that masked human movements. Every maneuver was reckless on paper, but was chaos woven with purpose, a tapestry of unpredictability that confounded an enemy bred for ritualized conquest. The clash erupted with merciless intensity. Alien cannons lit the void in searing arcs of violet fire, carving through false targets while the Resolute darted through confusion. Missiles detonated in patterns designed less to destroy than to disorient, turning the battlefield into a storm of misleading data. On the bridge, the crew moved with relentless focus. Juno's volleys striking where shields flickered weakest, Reese issuing commands that blended precision with instinct, and Mireia feeding real-time insights that twisted chaos into opportunity. For every victory, the cost mounted. Hull plating buckled under near misses. Casualties streamed from colony outposts under bombardment, and the stars themselves seemed to flare with the echo of destruction. Yet through the maelstrom, the humans endured, not by strength of arms, but by the refusal to conform to inevitability. The turning point came when the alien flagship itself advanced, its presence dwarfing all others, an avatar of superiority descending to crush dissent. Its commander, crystalline and cold, believed the moment ripe to end the contest. But as its weapons charged, the Resolute launched a desperate gambit, plunging into the heart of the formation, shields flickering dangerously low. Gasps rose from the crew, but Elias's voice cut through the fear. They think we're cornered. Let them believe it. At the last moment, decoy mines hidden among drifting wreckage detonated in synchronized brilliance, their shock waves tearing open gaps in the enemy's formation. The flagship's shields faltered for first time, its immaculate perfection marred by human cunning. Silence rippled through the alien command channels, disbelief palpable even across the void. On the Resolute, relief surged, tempered by exhaustion. "We hurt them," Reese whispered, half in awe, half in fury. Mireia's lips curved into a faint smile. "And that's what they never accounted for. That we could." The alien commander stared the damage on his vessel, crystalline features fractured by something deeper than anger. In his long life, he had crushed countless rebellions, silenced countless defiers, but none had struck at him with such audacity. His voice, low and reluctant, carried across the void. "Humans, you are not what we believed." Elias seized the opening. His message was not a plea, nor was it a boast. "We are not subjects. We are not prey. We are equals, and we will endure." The silence that followed was heavier than the storm of battle. At last, the alien fleet pulled back, not defeated in traditional sense, but shaken in ways no casualty report could measure. Their departure was less retreat than reconsideration, an acknowledgement that humanity was not a passing nuisance, but a force with the will to shape its own destiny. When the last enemy vessel vanished into the dark, the Resolute hung battered yet unbroken above Hyros. The crew, drained to their bones, sat in silence, absorbing the enormity of what they had accomplished. They had not won outright, yet they had carved their place into the stars through defiance alone. Elias stood at the viewport, watching the debris field glint like shattered glass. His voice carried softly, but with the weight of truth. "This isn't the end. It's the beginning. They'll return, stronger, maybe wiser, but so will we." His words wove into the silence of the bridge, sinking into every heart, a seed of resolve that promised survival not just for Hyros, but for humanity's future among the stars. Mireia's eyes lingered on him, her voice quiet, contemplative. "We've given them a story they can't ignore, and stories have power." Reese, ever pragmatic, adjusted his uniform, a faint smile ghosting across his stern features. "Then let's make sure the next chapter is one worth telling." Beyond the viewport, The nebula shimmered in violet and blue, as though the cosmos itself bore witness to the defiance of fragile yet unyielding species. Humanity's journey into the unknown was no longer a solitary march. It was a declaration, one that would echo across the stars. The war was not over, but the message was clear. Humanity had taken its first step into the vast theater of civilizations not as subjects, not as prey, but as equals who would not kneel. And in the silence that followed, the future stretched wide, daring them to claim it. Do you want to merge all three sections into a single continuous 3,000-word story draft now, or keep them as standalone episodes in a structured arc? The silence after the alien withdrawal did not last. Hyros returned to a fragile rhythm, its cities rebuilding under the shadow of the unknown, while the Resolute remained in orbit like a sentinel watching a horizon that might never be safe again. Yet within the quiet, fissures began to form. Victory, or what passed for it, had not erased fear, nor had it silenced a question that now gnawed at every heart. What came next? Captain Elias Cale felt that burden more sharply than anyone. The bridge no longer hummed with the energy of battle, but the weight of survival pressed down heavier than before. Each report that reached him spoke of shortages, wounded civilians, and colonies across the frontier whispering of evacuation. Humanity had survived the test, but survival was not enough. Without unity, without direction, they would collapse before the aliens even returned. Commander Reese embodied the raw edge of that dilemma. He stood in the strategy chamber, arms braced against a hollow table, his voice low but unflinching. We have to prepare for war. Not another skirmish, not another desperate trick. War. That means arming every colony, every ship, every man and woman willing to fight. His eyes, steel and fire, locked on Elias. If we hesitate, they'll erase us. Across from him, Dr. Maria Solon shook her head, her expression stern but tempered with conviction. If we turn every world into a fortress, we become what they expect, another enemy to crush. We've already proven we can resist. What we need now is leverage, knowledge that forces them to see us differently. She touched the console, bringing up streams of alien data. She had risked everything to decode. Their society isn't invincible. Their hierarchy is brittle. If we can fracture their certainty, we can change the balance without burning ourselves to ash. The room thickened with tension. Between Reese's call for strength and Mireya's insistence on strategy lay the fulcrum of humanity's fate. Elias listened, his silence heavy, his mind calculating. He knew both spoke truths, and yet neither alone could sustain their people. Humanity's defiance had bought time, not safety, and in that time, a choice had to be made. The decision sharpened when the transmission arrived, unbidden and impossible. The alien commander himself appeared as a projection, crystalline features marred with the faint cracks of their last encounter. His voice, no longer dripping solely with disdain, carried a new weight, measured, probing. Humans, you have shown what should not be possible. You have defied inevitability. Now you stand at a threshold. Step forward as rivals or fall as enemies. Gasps rippled through the crew, but Elias stood unmoving, eyes locked on the figure. The offer or the challenge was clear. Recognition, but at a price. Reese bristled, fists clenched. It's a trap. They'll never see us as equals. They're just buying time to strike harder. Mireya's voice, softer but unshaken, threaded into the silence. Or as an opening, a chance to speak before the next war swallows us whole. She turned to Elias. Whatever their intent, refusing now cements us as prey. Engaging, even cautiously, forces them to treat us as something more. Elias's gaze swept between them, then returned to the alien projection. Every instinct warned of danger, yet beneath the alien's polished superiority flickered something familiar. Curiosity, perhaps even the faintest edge of respect. That sliver, however fragile, might be the wedge humanity needed. When he spoke, his voice was steady, carved from the same defiance that had carried them this far. If we are to speak, it will be as equals, not as subjects, not as prey. If you cannot accept that, then we meet again in battle. The alien commander tilted his crystalline head, the faintest shimmer crossing his features. Then the projection vanished. leaving only silence and the echo of possibility. The council erupted in debate, voices clashing like blades. Some cried for preparation, others for diplomacy, all driven by fear of extinction and hunger for survival. Elias let the storm rage, then cut through with a single statement. We walk both paths. We strengthen our defenses, but we seek the cracks in their certainty. We will not wait for them to decide our fate. In that moment, the fracture among his officers became a fragile unity, bound not by agreement but by necessity. Reese bowed his head in grudging acceptance, while Mireya's eyes glimmered with a dangerous hope of discovery. That night, alone in his quarters, Elias stared at the stars beyond Hyros. The nebula's glow shimmered faintly, beautiful and indifferent, as though mocking the struggles of mortals. He thought of the alien commander's words, of Reese's fire, of Mireya's vision. He thought of the countless lives hanging on choices made in silence. The conflict was no longer about survival alone. It was about identity, about whether humanity would carve its place among the stars as warriors, as thinkers, or as something new entirely. And though the weight of that truth pressed heavy, Elias felt the spark of resolve flare brighter. For even in the vast indifference of the cosmos, humanity had been noticed. That notice was dangerous, but it was also a beginning. The next chapter would not be written by fear or inevitability. It would be written by defiance, by will, by the fragile yet unbreakable promise that humanity would not kneel. And as the Resolute drifted in silent vigil, the stars themselves seemed to lean closer, as if waiting for the answer humanity had yet to give. Would you like me to now restructure all 4 sections into one continuous flowing narrative, about 4,000 words total, so it reads as a single seamless story rather than separate parts?